If every church on earth could speak, some countries would sound like a thunderstorm of bells. Their skylines, villages, roadsides, and forgotten valleys are filled with crosses, steeples, chapels, and sanctuaries built by generations who refuse to let faith disappear. But here is the twist most people never expect. The country with the highest number of churches in the world is not always the most Catholic country, not always the oldest Christian nation, and not always the place with the biggest cathedrals. This ranking is not only about architecture, it is about nations shaped by baptismal fonts, Sunday bells, candlelit altars, and communities that built sacred spaces through poverty, war, migration, persecution, and revival. Some countries on this list are famous for grand cathedrals. Others built thousands of humble chapels that rarely appear in travel guides but still carry the prayers of entire families. So which nation has the most churches on earth? And what does that reveal about the soul of its people? Stay with us until the end, because number 1 tells a much bigger story than a simple statistic. And if you want to discover more powerful stories about the Catholic Church, Christian history, and the faith that shaped nations, subscribe to the channel now and join us before we begin. Number 10. Nigeria. Nigeria does not introduce its churches quietly. They rise from crowded streets, dusty village roads, university towns, market corners, and neighborhoods where the sound of worship can spill into the night like a living pulse. In some places, a church may be a vast hall filled with thousands of voices. In others, it may be a simple chapel with plastic chairs, a tin roof, and a small altar guarded by people who understand that faith is not decoration. It is survival. What makes Nigeria so gripping on this list is not only the number of churches, but the intensity behind them. Christianity here is not a sleepy cultural memory. It is loud, young, emotional, and deeply public. Catholic parishes stand alongside Anglican, Pentecostal, Evangelical, and independent churches, creating one of the most dramatic Christian landscapes in the world. On Sunday morning, entire communities move toward worship as if the nation itself has changed rhythm. Yet Nigeria's story carries tension. In parts of the country, believers do not gather casually. They gather with courage. Churches have become places of prayer, refuge, identity, and sometimes grief. A baptism, a wedding, or a Sunday Mass can carry a weight that outsiders may never fully understand. Every cross on a church roof seems to say that faith here was not built in comfort alone. Nigeria earns its place because its churches are not merely counted, they are felt. They reveal a country where Christianity is expanding with energy, where Catholic life remains deeply alive, and where sacred spaces continue to rise even when history, pressure, and suffering try to silence them. And as this countdown begins, Nigeria leaves us with one haunting question. If this is only number 10, how massive must the church landscape become as we move closer to number 1? Number 9. Spain. Spain feels like a country where stone still remembers prayer. Walk through an old town at dusk, and the church is rarely hidden. It is at the center of the square, above the market, beside the narrow street, or rising over the rooftops like a witness that has survived empires, wars, revolutions, and silence. With about 22,922 Catholic parishes, Spain remains one of the great church landscapes of the world. But its power is not only in the number, it is in the contradiction. This is a country where secular life has grown stronger, yet church bells still mark the rhythm of villages. A nation where mass attendance has declined, yet Holy Week processions can still fill the streets with candles, drums, statues, tears, and thousands of people walking behind the suffering Christ. Spain's churches are not just religious sites, they are memory chambers. Inside them are royal tombs, worn confessionals, Marian chapels, village saints, and altars touched by generations who came carrying fear, gratitude, grief, and hope. From small rural parishes to the unfinished grandeur of the Sagrada Familia, Spain does not simply count churches, it carries them like a national inheritance. And that is why Spain belongs here. Its churches reveal a deeper tension in the modern Christian world. A country can become more secular and still remain shaped by sacred architecture. The faith may not always fill every pew, but But the buildings remain, asking a quiet question no statistic can answer. When a nation has built this many churches, can it ever fully forget the prayers that built them? Number 8. Poland. Poland enters this countdown with a different kind of force. Not the force of size alone, but the force of a nation where the parish has often felt like a second homeland. During occupations, communism, political pressure, and cultural change, the church building was more than a Sunday destination. It was where people whispered names, protected memory, buried their dead, taught their children, and learned that faith could outlast the state. The scale is still striking. Recent church data places Poland at roughly 10,000 Catholic parishes, with earlier official figures listing more than 10,300 parishes and hundreds of pastoral centers. For a country smaller than many global giants, that network is immense. It means the church is not only present in famous cities like Krakow, Warsaw, and Gdańsk. It reaches into small towns, roadside villages, farming communities, and neighborhoods where the steeple still tells people where the center of life used to be. But Poland's place on this list carries pressure. The pews are not as full as they once were. Younger generations are asking harder questions. Public trust has been tested, and yet the buildings remain, not as empty monuments, but as battlegrounds of memory. Every parish carries a quiet tension between inheritance and renewal, between a Catholic identity received from the past and a faith that must be chosen again in the present. That is why Poland's churches feel so powerful. They are not just evidence of religious history. They are witnesses to a national soul still wrestling with what it wants to become. A country can inherit thousands of churches, but it must decide whether those churches will become museums, landmarks, or living homes of prayer. And as we move higher on this list, the question becomes sharper. When a nation builds this many sacred places, what happens when the next generation must decide whether to enter them? Number 7. France. France arrives on this list like a paradox carved into limestone. It is one of the most secular nations in Europe, yet its landscape is crowded with churches. From the smallest village steeple to the restored majesty of Notre Dame de Paris, the country still carries a sacred map beneath its modern republic. The numbers are staggering. France has more than 40,000 Catholic places of worship owned by local communes, plus more than 2,000 diocesan buildings. Many of them were built before the modern secular state took shape, which means they now stand in a strange tension. Legally public, historically Catholic, emotionally tied to generations of believers who filled them with baptisms, funerals, feast days, and whispered prayers. But France is not powerful in this ranking because every church is full. Its drama is sharper than that. Some rural churches open only a few times a year. Some parishes stretch across dozens of villages. Some buildings wait for restoration money that may never come. Yet the cross remains on the skyline, and the bell tower still tells the village where its heart once beat strongest. That is the haunting force of France. It has not simply built churches. It has inherited an entire civilization of sacred stone, and now it must decide what to do with it. Are these buildings only heritage, or are they sleeping embers of faith? As we move closer to the top of the countdown, France leaves behind a question that feels impossible to ignore. Can a country covered with churches ever become completely secular? Number 6. Germany. Germany does not feel dramatic at first. That is exactly why it is unsettling. The change is not always a church collapsing in public view. It is a spreadsheet, a diocesan map, a parish council meeting, a notice on a door, and a quiet announcement that several communities will now become one. In 2024, the Catholic Church in Germany counted 9,291 parishes, down from 9,418 the year before. The number is still enormous, but the movement behind it is contraction. Germany remains one of the countries with a major church network, yet that network is being redrawn under pressure from fewer priests, fewer regular worshipers, and a society where Catholic identity no longer feels automatic. The emotional cost is hidden in ordinary places. A child may be baptized in a church where Sunday Mass will no longer be offered every week. An older couple may watch their lifelong parish become part of a larger administrative unit. A priest may drive from town to town, carrying the sacraments across a region that once had a stronger local rhythm. Germany's churches are not disappearing overnight. That is the point. They are entering a slower and more complicated chapter where the buildings remain visible while the parish system behind them changes shape. And that gives Germany a different kind of weight in this countdown. It is not only a country with many churches, it is a warning that even a vast sacred network must keep finding living people, living priests, and living communities to hold it together. Number 5. Philippines. Before sunrise, long before the city has fully awakened, church doors in the Philippines are already opening. Families step out into the dark. Vendors light small stalls near parish gates. Choirs begin to warm their voices. For many Filipinos, Catholic life does not wait for perfect silence. It begins in motion, in crowds, in heat, in devotion, and in the ordinary courage of people who keep showing up. The numbers give that energy a visible shape. By the end of 2023, the Catholic Church in the Philippines had more than 93 million Catholics, with around 3,781 parishes and more than 6,036 pastoral centers. That means the church network is not limited to famous cathedrals or historic basilicas. It reaches across islands, fishing towns, crowded cities, mountain communities, and neighborhoods where a small chapel can become the spiritual center of an entire street. But the Philippines is different from the European countries before it. Here, the story is not mostly about inheritance under pressure. It is about movement. The church breathes through processions, youth choirs, Marian devotion, neighborhood novenas, and millions of ordinary families who treat Catholic life as part of daily rhythm. A parish can be a place for Mass in the morning, catechism in the afternoon, a charity drive by evening, and a gathering point when disaster strikes. That is the power of the Philippines in this countdown. Its churches are not waiting quietly to be remembered. They are working, ringing, feeding, teaching, sheltering, and gathering people in real time. And as the list moves higher, the Philippines changes the question completely. Which countries have built the most churches? And which ones still know how to make those churches feel like the heartbeat of a nation? Number 4. Italy. Italy does not need to search for churches. It lives among them. A person can turn a corner in Rome and face a basilica older than many nations, climb a hill in Assisi and find prayer carved into silence, or enter a tiny village where the church door opens onto a square that has carried baptisms, weddings, funerals, and feast days for centuries. The scale explains why Italy deserves top 4. By the end of 2023, Italy and Vatican City had about 25,393 parishes, plus more than 5,500 other pastoral centers. That is not just a large network. It is one of the densest Catholic landscapes on earth, shaped by ancient dioceses, rural parishes, city basilicas, monasteries, shrines, and neighborhood churches that make faith visible almost everywhere. But Italy's power is not only quantity, it is concentration. Here, churches are not scattered symbols. They are layered into civilization itself. Rome alone carries the memory of martyrs, popes, councils, pilgrims, artists, and ordinary believers who crossed the same thresholds for nearly 2,000 years. In Italy, a church can be a masterpiece, a parish home, a national landmark, and a place where an old woman still lights a candle before going home. Italy stands high on this list because its churches are woven into ordinary life in a way few countries can match. They ring above train stations, overlook vineyards, anchor village squares, and watch over narrow streets where generations have learned to pray. Across Italy, stone, faith, and memory have lived together for so long that it is almost impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. Number 3. Mexico. Mexico enters through footsteps, not silence. Millions move towards shrines, parish plazas, roadside chapels, and candlelit sanctuaries with a devotion that feels personal before it feels institutional. A church in Mexico is often more than a place for Sunday Mass. It can be the center of a town's feast, the shelter of a grieving family, the promise made by a pilgrim, or the place where a mother brings flowers to Our Lady of Guadalupe with tears she does not explain. The scale is strong enough to place Mexico near the very top. By the end of 2023, the Catholic Church in Mexico counted 7,838 parishes, 1,083 mission stations, and more than 5,143 other pastoral centers. Behind those figures is a country where Catholic life stretches from massive urban parishes to remote communities, from colonial churches built in stone to humble chapels standing beside roads, fields, and mountain paths. Mexico deserves top 3 because its church network carries both size and emotional gravity. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe alone draws one of the largest Catholic pilgrimage movements on earth. But the deeper story is not only in the basilica, it is in the countless local churches where feast days fill the streets, bells interrupt ordinary routines, and sacred images are carried through neighborhoods as if faith itself has stepped outside the walls. Mexico's churches are not just numerous, they are intensely lived. They hold memory, resistance, family devotion, and national identity in the same space. Across the country, a small parish can feel as important to its people as a cathedral because it is where generations learn the language of prayer before they ever learn the language of history. Number 2, Brazil. Brazil feels like a country where faith has learned to travel. It moves with riverboats on the Amazon, with buses crossing crowded cities, with families walking toward hillside chapels, and with songs rising from parish festivals that turn ordinary streets into places of worship. Here, the church is not locked inside stone walls. It spreads through distance, music, color, and motion. The scale is enormous. By the end of 2023, Brazil had 12,646 Catholic parishes, 5,107 mission stations, and more than 30,220 other pastoral centers. Across such a vast country, those numbers become more than records. They become a map of presence, reaching from coastal capitals to rural interiors, from historic churches to simple mission communities. Brazil belongs near the top because its church network has to serve a nation of extraordinary variety. A cathedral in Rio de Janeiro, a chapel near a riverbank, a parish in Sao Paulo, and a mission station deep inland may look completely different, yet they all carry the same purpose: to keep the sacraments close to the people. In a country this large, every church is also a bridge between distance and belonging. The beauty of Brazil's place on this list is its movement. Its churches do not create one single image. They create thousands of scenes: a candle lit before Mass, a choir rehearsing in the heat, a priest arriving after a long journey, a feast day filling the street with color. Brazil's sacred landscape feels alive because it is always reaching, always gathering, and always finding new ways to bring faith closer to home. Number 1, United States. No other country on this list contains so many different churches, languages, traditions, and stories of faith under one flag. In the United States, a single Sunday can sound like the entire Christian world praying at once. A Catholic church in New York may stand between glass towers. A parish in Texas may serve a fast-growing Hispanic community. One church in Louisiana may carry French Catholic memory. Another in California may welcome families whose roots stretch across Mexico, the Philippines, Vietnam, Korea, Africa, and Europe. The numbers explain the scale. In 2022, the United States had about 16,429 Catholic congregations, and the broader Christian landscape becomes even larger when Protestant, Orthodox, and independent churches are counted. But America's top position is not only about how many church buildings stand across the country, it is about the astonishing variety inside them. Few nations contain so many church traditions, immigrant stories, languages, music styles, and regional Catholic cultures under one national roof. A single Sunday can reveal the size of it. Spanish Mass before noon, English Mass at midday, Vietnamese hymns in one parish hall, Filipino devotions in another, African American Catholic choirs, Polish festivals, Irish parish histories, Italian processions, Korean communities, and suburban megaparishes all moving inside the same national church. In America, churches were built not only by bishops and architects, but by immigrants who needed a spiritual home before they fully had a place in the country. The United States deserves number one because its churches do not tell one story. They tell thousands at once. They speak of arrival, survival, rebuilding, belonging, and renewal. Some are old urban parishes fighting to stay open. Some are crowded churches in the South and West. Some are small mission communities still held together by sacrifice. Across the United States, church bells ring in hundreds of accents and traditions, yet together they tell one remarkable story. Millions of people from different histories and different cultures still gather around the same altar, carrying a faith large enough to feel like an entire world inside one nation. From the ancient stone churches of Europe to the vibrant parishes of the Americas, this journey has revealed something far deeper than a ranking of buildings. Every church on this list represents generations of prayer, sacrifice, hope, and community. Some stand in crowded cities. Others rest in quiet villages or along remote roads. Yet each one was built because people believed that faith deserved a place at the center of life. These countries remind us that churches are more than landmarks or tourist destinations. They are where children are baptized, families are united, hearts are healed, and entire communities learn to pray together. Behind every bell tower and every chapel door is a story that continues to unfold. Which country surprised you the most? And which church would you love to visit one day? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories of the Catholic Church, Christian history, and the faith that has shaped nations and civilizations, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us for more journeys into the heart of Catholic culture. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.